and a citizen that was involved in a catastrophic crash this morning, a fatal crash. At 3:06 a.m., officers responded to a two-vehicle crash at Mississippi Boulevard and Danny Thomas Boulevard, involving a gray Nissan and an MPD squad car. Responding officers located 3 injured males, 2 of which are MPD officers. All were transported to Regional 1 Hospital in critical condition. An officer and the driver of the gray Nissan were pronounced deceased at the hospital. The second officer remains in critical condition. The preliminary investigation revealed the driver of the gray Nissan was also suffering from a gunshot wound. The cause of the crash and the location of the initial shooting are still under investigation. At this time, the Tennessee Highway Patrol has been contacted to investigate the collision, the actual vehicular accident, and the MPD's Homicide Bureau will investigate the shooting. This is an ongoing investigation, and we don't have very much other information at this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody.
All right, what you just watched there was Interim Police Chief C.J. Davis giving an update on this breaking news that we've been following for you all morning long before Good Morning America aired. What we know so far from the Interim Police Chief there is that at around 3:06 this morning, there was a deadly crash involving 2 officers and 1 person at Mississippi Boulevard and Danny Thomas. What you're looking at is video of that scene, what our crews got there. According to the interim chief, she says that 3 men were involved in this crash. 2 of them were officers. 1 officer and the driver of a gray Nissan have died from their injuries. It was a 2-car crash, an MPD cruiser, and that single Nissan gray, that gray Altima. We're also told that the driver of that car also suffered a gunshot wound. But police are still investigating how that happened, where that original shooting took place. The other officer, the 3rd man, is still seriously injured and hopefully on the path to recovery. We have several different agencies that are actually working this investigation at this point, including Tennessee Highway Patrol that will investigate the crash, but also other agencies as well that will investigate what led up to this crash, including how the victim, that man in the gray Nissan, got a gunshot wound shortly before or sometime before that crash happened. We've been covering all of this live. That press conference was right outside of Regional 1 where that one officer, that remaining officer, is still recovering and being treated. Our Leah Williams has been live out there at Regional 1 just following this big and breaking story. But our Stephen Pimpo is standing by and getting ready for a report. He's been there at that scene this morning at Mississippi Boulevard and Danny Thomas. And one thing we can say is that if you have to get up and out the door this morning, that will probably impact your morning commute still, because it is such a large and growing crime scene. They've been backing everyone out of that area for the past several hours. Again, this all happened at 3:06. Let's go now to our Stephen Pimpo this morning with an update on his end. Stephen, what do you know?
Yvonne, we are continuing, like you said, to cover this now deadly crash that happened here at Mississippi Boulevard and Danny Thomas. I'm here at East Butler and G.E. Patterson. Again, this is the close that we have been able to get to the scene all day. You look behind me, Memphis Police Command Center still on the scene here. You can see these screens that have been set up to kind of block the scene from our view. We're not sure what the reasoning is behind that, but it's behind those screens that the police car that crashed into the civilian car, the 2 cars that crashed into each other, that Chief Davis described as a catastrophic crash. Now, if you look at this video that we shot this morning, you can see why that word catastrophic was used. It was just a hectic scene that ABC 24 cameras captured, sirens all over the place, firefighters working to get those who were injured in this crash out of the cars that they were involved in. Serious damage done to both the Memphis police cruiser and that gray Nissan. As we were just told, that Interim Chief C.J. Davis saying that the driver of that Nissan was suffering from a gunshot wound, and they will be investigating that. Now, as I said, This scene keeps expanding. They may be out of precaution for first responder safety. We're not sure. We've been told that it goes as far back as East Georgia and Danny Thomas. Yvonne, back to you.
Stephen, thank you so much for staying on top of that. Let's turn now to Leah Williams, who is following this story as well, who is still live outside of Regional 1. Leah, we just heard from the interim police chief. Give us an update on that one officer that is still in the hospital right now.
That Nissan actually collided with the officers.
Yeah, Yvonne, Interim Chief Davis told us that one person is still in critical condition here at Regional 1 in the trauma center. So we don't know exactly their injuries, but they did tell us that the driver of the other vehicle that did pass had a gunshot wound. So they're still investigating the crash. They're still investigating that shooting. It's still a very fluid situation, and MPD is still working to get those details so that we can get you those details. But if you take a look here, we're still at Regional 1 and there are still police cars outside of the hospital, but we do now know that 2 people did die, and we do know that it was 3 men that were injured in this crash. Now again, MPD is still investigating the cause of the crash, and they're still investigating the cause of the shooting because they said the driver of the Nissan did have a gunshot wound. So again, still developing this story today, and we'll keep you updated as we continue getting more updates on this situation. Live at the Medical District, I'm Leah Williams.
Top of that, it is a devastating and heartbreaking day for not only the officer who's died, but also the other person, the civilian that was in the gray Nissan, and that surviving officer that is still in critical condition at Regional 1. We are definitely thinking of their family and their friends at this time. Let's go now to meteorologist Trevor Burchett, who is keeping an eye on this traffic situation that's in the area near downtown, because we know that is a very busy intersection near Mississippi Boulevard and Danny Thomas.
Yeah, that's right, Yvonne, and it is going to cause some delays and some detours for you for the next several hours as they continue to investigate that crash we've been telling you about. Again, this all happened at Danny Thomas and Mississippi Boulevard, but they've kind of expanded that scene. So there are several blocks around that intersection that are also blocked off. Again, this is just on the edge of downtown Memphis, not far from FedEx Forum and not far from Regional 1 Hospital. So if you do normally take Danny Thomas this morning, I would just completely avoid that. Danny Thomas, just consider it blocked from Vance Avenue all the way down to E.H. Crump. You can use Crump as an alternate route eastbound and westbound up to Lamar if you need to get to the interstate. MLK Jr. Avenue is also an alternate if you need to get into downtown Memphis. But again, Danny Thomas at Mississippi Boulevard, I would avoid that. B.B. King and 2nd Street, those are also alternate routes if you need to avoid Danny Thomas, which again, I would do this morning. But expect that intersection to be blocked for quite some time as they continue that investigation. Just stay away from that area right there at Danny Thomas and Mississippi Boulevard if you can.
Trevor, thank you so much for helping us with that traffic situation there. If you're just joining us here on ABC 24 News, we are following this deadly crash that happened earlier this morning, just after 3 a.m. It was near the intersection of Mississippi Boulevard and Danny Thomas near downtown. We've just heard from Interim Police Chief CJ Davis describing what she said was a catastrophic, deadly wreck. We know that at least 2 cars only, were involved, an MPD cruiser and a gray Nissan. We know 3 men were involved in this crash. 2 of those men were officers. 1 of those men was just a civilian, just driving. We're also being told that 1 officer and the driver of that gray Nissan have died from their injuries. The driver of the gray Nissan also had a gunshot wound. And investigators are working to figure out what led up to the crash and how the man got this gunshot wound. That last man, which is the other officer, the 2nd officer, is still in the hospital at this point in critical condition. Several different agencies are working on this investigation, not just MPD, but also the Tennessee Highway Patrol, as they'll be working to learn exactly what happened there. Our Stephen Pimple has been really following. He's been our eyes and the ears on the scene this morning as all of this continues to unfold and develop. Stephen, let's go to you now with an update from what you can see.
Yvonne, we are here continuing to monitor the scene here. Again, we are East Butler. and G.E. Patterson. And this is, again, as close as we're able to get to the scene. It's been expanding constantly throughout the morning. This Memphis Police Command Center has been here since at least around 5:30 this morning when I got here. And officers continue to comb through the area. You see these screens set up to block off the crash site from view. We're not sure what the reasoning is behind that, but they are continuing to examine both the Memphis police car and that gray Nissan that were involved in this deadly crash. They say it was catastrophic. That's the word that Memphis Police Chief CJ Davis used to describe this crash. And based on the video that we've showed you, what you were able to see from that scene, if we could pull that video up, it certainly fits that description. Heavy damage to the front of that gray Nissan, heavy damage to both the front and back of the Memphis police car. The driver's side door of the Memphis police car had to be removed. Again, this crash resulting in the death of one man and one male Memphis police officer. The other still seriously hurt. Now, as we told you, THP is investigating the crash. The Memphis police is investigating their homicide unit is investigating the gunshots that civilian suffered in this incident. We'll continue to keep you updated on the scene. They've been out here since 3 a.m. and we'll continue to stick with it. Back to you, Yvonne.
Thank you, Stephen. We appreciate that. You can stay with us for the latest updates on this big developing and breaking news story right here on ABC 24, but also on our free mobile app. That is available to download for free in the Apple App Store or in Google Play. Let's turn now to weather this morning, because that is another big story for all of us as we've been dealing with this heat wave. Trevor, you have that update.
That's right. Another day of heat and humidity as you're walking out the door. It's 80 degrees already in Memphis, 80 in Tunica, 81 in Clarksdale. Expect sunshine through the day today. Your high temperature around 94 degrees. Now, the saving grace is we do have a little bit of a cold front sneaking through the Mid-South. Now, it's not going to turn us cold.